Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So this is the fourth and the final part of our chapter, which is sources of past history. First of all, let's recall what we have learned in the previous lessons. We discussed about the term history, that it has been derived from a Greek word which is historia, and we can thus define history as a study of the past. And this study of the past may be divided into two branches, that is archaeology and history. We also discussed about monuments, that they are the buildings and houses that have historical importance, and also we discussed about some of the greatest monuments of our country and the world as a whole. So in this video we are going to talk about people and events. Remember, history talks about the people and events that have important roles to play in the past and periods of history. So let's first talk about people that have done significant works in the past. So the first photo that you're looking at is Alexander the Great. Alexander, he said to have conquered half of the known world back then. Half of the world, can you imagine that? He had one of the largest empires of all the time. One of the largest empires, and that too, he died at the age of 32, and he achieved so much. The second photo that you're looking at is Albert Einstein. He was a great scientist and he worked on general theory of relativity, for which he was awarded a Nobel Prize in 1921. Our third prominent personality is Isaac Newton. I'm sure you must have heard about him. Newton was a scientist, mathematician, and an astronomer. He is famous for his theory of gravity, remember the story of Apple, and laws of motion. Next is a very prominent personality of our country, which is Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. He was a freedom fighter and he spent his whole life fighting for social justice. Similarly, history talks about the important events that took place in history or that took place in the past, such as wars, World War I, World War II. There are so many wars. And the days of independence. Important days of independence of India are Independence Day and Republic Day. The customs and traditions, epidemics, and the revolutions, etc. Revolutions such as the Green Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, etc. So you may have a glance at some of the greatest events of the world yourself. Now the periods of history. So our history or our past has been divided into different periods to make us understand better. It has been divided into three periods: the ancient period, medieval period, and the modern period. So the ancient period refers to be the one which is very old, as the word ancient implies that something very old. The medieval period, which is the middle phase, the region between after the ancient period and the modern period, that is called the medieval period. And the modern period, which is the time which is more recent. This is not exactly today, but which is recent. That means not much time has passed. These periods are not actually well demarcated. That means we do not know about their exact dates. Now let us discuss each one of the periods in detail. The ancient period. It is believed that the ancient period was started with the invention of writing, and it ended with the beginning of Middle Ages, the medieval period. So writing was started around 3000 years before Christ, which is over 5000 years from now, and it started in the Middle East. The Middle Eastern region of the world, that is, it consists of UAE, Iran, Iraq, Saudi, Kuwait, Qatar, Jordan, etc. So, how did we find out about that period? This was the work of archaeologists. Things like clay pots, solid tools and metal weapons and monuments, etc., helped them to understand that period better. These things were left behind by the ancient people or our ancestors. So some of the famous things, ancient things found were the Egyptian pyramids. You have already seen the photo, and that it was built around 3000 years ago. The city of Pompeii, it is a city from ancient Rome. This is the city of Pompeii. Actually, it is a portion of it, and you can see the remains. And the Terracotta Army. This is a tomb in ancient China. This is the Terracotta Army. This is kind of fascinating. This was constructed as a tomb of first Qin emperor, the first emperor of China. So this was his army. Now these are some of the significant personalities of the ancient period. This is Darius the Great, the king. He took over Macedonia and Libya in 512 BC, and he was one of the kings of Persia and famous for his great building projects. This is Alexander the Great. We have already discussed about him. And this is Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar helped build the Roman Empire, and he also invented our calendar system. That it was believed in the ancient period that a year has 355 days. Julius Caesar corrected it. This is the Marcus Brutus. Brutus was one of the leading assassinators of Caesar. Julius Caesar. He assassinated Julius Caesar, and some people consider him as a hero and some as a villain. The next period is the medieval period. The medieval period started after the collapse of Roman Empire. Roman Empire was flourishing during the ancient period, but the moment it collapsed, the medieval period started. It starts roughly in the 5th century and continued up to 15th century, when Columbus discovered the New World in 1492. That is the 15th century. Now this age, the medieval age, was dominated by religion. It was dominated by religion. Religion was there in every act, in everything they did. The life in the Middle Ages was deeply religious. A part of it is also called as the age of faith because of the rise of Christianity and Islam in that period. Some of the things that belong to the medieval period. This is Charlemagne's palace, who was a king of that time, and this is a statue of Apollo in a temple that was dedicated to him. He was considered as the Roman god. So this picture depicts the three classes of medieval society. The medieval society was divided into different classes, higher and lower class. This man represents the higher class that used to pray. Those who used to took who used to take part in wars, and these are the peasants or the farmers. This is a coin belonging to Theodoric the Great. He was also a king. Now the modern period. Modern period began after the Middle Ages, and in this period many advances in science and technology were witnessed, and several other things happened, like the Industrial Revolution and the invention of steam engine. Industrial Revolution, uh, due to which the industries were built and manufacturing process began, and the invention of steam engine, it is in the 18th century, that led to a great advancement in the transport sector. And the World War I and II took place in this period, and there were many advances, as I said, in science and technology, and space explorations were there. If we talk about the medieval Europe, you can see in this picture, this is the medieval Europe. Observe it closely. This is also a depiction of medieval Europe, water body and a bridge. So this concludes our chapter that we discussed about history and the periods of history, that it has been divided into 3 periods: ancient, medieval and modern period, and that we discussed about some of the greatest personalities of history that have done important works in the past, and also the events that have important place in the past. So your assignments will be sent to you in a separate attachment. You have to do that in the same manner. Thank you.